Maybe as we proceed here, let me just make some few comments also on the last discussion about colored people. I think it's very important for colored people in this country to understand that South Africa belongs to them in totality, not just Western Cape. So this over-concentration of colors in the Western Cape is not working for them. What they should
must go on the great track.
They should spread in the rest of the country. There's a requirement of colors in Limpopo. There's a requirement of colors everywhere else in the country. So they must stop this over-concentration situation, because they are in oversupply where they are. So you must look into the country and see where you can meet the supply. And also, I must say here, even to Dirk here, that let's understand that this Employment Equity Act is a very good act in this country.
Let's start then with money.
As we proceed here, let me just make some quick comments also on the last discussion about colored people. I think it's very important for colored people in this country to understand that South Africa belongs to them in totality, not just Western Cape. So this over-concentration of colors in the Western Cape is not working for them. What they should do, they should spread in the rest of the country. There's a requirement of colors in Limpopo, there's a requirement of colors everywhere else in the country. So they must stop this over-concentration situation, because they are in oversupply where they are. So you must look into the country and see where you can meet the supply. And also, I must say here to Dirk here, that
let's move then to manual. And before I move to manual, just about non-checking. What is he saying? He says, this over-concentration of colours in the Western Cape is not working for them. They should spread in the rest of the country. And these specific comments unleashed a furor on the head of Jimmy Manji. I think you will remember that. And he's currently the government spokesperson and, of course, the former Director General of Labour and Chair of the Commission for Employment Equity. Now let's move then to Manuel. Manji's remarks then drew a scathing attack from Mr. Trevor Manuel, South Africa's international respected planning commission head, in an open letter to Manji. To refresh our memories, let's listen again what Manuel then said. He said, it's about Manji now. Your statements about an over-concentration of colours are against the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. He then wrote that Manji's utterances that we just heard were both unconstitutional and morally reprehensible. And then he wrote, I want to put it to you, to Manji, that these statements would make you a racist in the mold of H.F. Verwoerd. I want to put it to you that you have the same mind that operated under apartheid. And then he said, now, in the light of the utterances you made when you were the DG of Department of Labour, and given the fact that the amendments to the Employment Equity Act were drafted under your tenure, I have a sense, and listen to this, that your racism has infiltrated the highest echelons of government. And then he wrote, count me among those who, in spite of my position, will ensure that Parliament acts in the letter and spirit of your Constitution when it adopts amendments to the Act. I will do battle against the harm you seek to inflict. I must declare my willingness to make sacrifices now in defence to the opening lines of the Freedom Charter that boldly declare that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. I now know who Nelson Mandela was talking about when he said from the dock that he had fought against white domination and that he fought against black domination. Jimmy, he was talking about fighting against people like you, Manuel. And now, let me introduce to you three of the coloured employees of the Department of Correctional Services. They are Rudy van Heerden, Derek Weir, and Dirk Kotze. These three applied for posts in correctional services. In each case, the applicant was the best candidate and was recommended for appointment in the post which they applied. However, the recommendations were not seen as consistent with the affirmative action plan of the Department of Correctional Services. According to the affirmative action plan of the department, national demographics have to be reflected in every workplace. The post in question had to be reserved for black African candidates. No, it is not only an isolated incident in the office of Jimmy Mandi. It's the Department of Correctional Services affirmative action plan. The affirmative action plan is based on national demographics, which means that the target for colours in the Western Cape must be 9%. Let me just quote it for you. The National Commissioner's Directive states regions are not to develop their own regional plans based on the regional demographic profile of the economically active people, but that the different regions are to develop own EE implementation plans to work towards realization of the national numeric goals set for the entire department. And then they set out all the statistics, the national statistics that must be then reflected in the Western Cape. So what we hear is that there is an over-concentration of colours in the Western Cape, according to the department. You laughed about that video. This is the plan, government's affirmative action plan. As Mandi said, this over-concentration does not work for people like Rudy, Derek, and Young, and thousands others that work with them. This is a numerical approach to affirmative action. People become numbers. Manuel is saying in his letter, people are being treated as things. In one place an oversupply, and elsewhere an undersupply. And that is what Mandi's remarks mean in effect. Exactly. An output-based affirmative action program and has little to do with equity, but much with race and racial numbers. Oh, the question is then about Mandi. Was Mandi merely wearing a racist hat in the mold of H.F. Verwoerd, as Manuel put it? No. This numerical approach to affirmative action has in fact become affirmative action itself. It has become part and parcel of the affirmative action plans of government departments. The country must mirror South Africa's national demographics in all areas, and that's an exact science. Now, I also like to introduce to you Captain Renata Barnard of the South African Police Service. 3 times she applied for a post. Each time she was the best candidate. And every single time the answer was the same. The National Commissioner has decided not to approve the recommendation for the post due to the following reasons. The recommendation did not address representativity. That's the definition of affirmative action. Representativity, and this is direct quotes. Initially, the post remained vacant. So they rather decided to leave the post vacant, and later on, it could not be filled. What did they do? They removed the post. How many examples do you want? I don't know. If you don't know me. Well, let me just introduce to you Tinus Gous, who received the following response to his application for promotion. The above-mentioned post advertised during phase 1-2008 and 9 promotion process was not filled due to equity restrictions. And the paid post in that specific case was filled vacant, left vacant. The irony of Tinus Gous is that he recently died in a police helicopter accident. And after the accident, I think you remember that it was quite prominent in the newspapers. And after the accident, he was described by the police as a hero. But they were not prepared to give him promotion simply because of his race and simply because of representativity, even if they had to leave the post vacant. And so I can really go on and on. Time and again, posts are left vacant. Equity loses out all along. The only victor is Mr. Vacancy. The state would rather leave a post unfilled than deviate from the principle of representativity. This ideology of representativity is more important than to serve the masses. The tyranny of representativity has become affirmative action. Jimmy Manji's controversial remarks are merely a reflection of government's concept of affirmative action. His explanation was so well that he became cabinet spokesperson because he said it so well. On the 30th of August 2010, the current chairperson of the Employment Equity Commission, Paul Kelly, explained the ideology of representativity in the Times, stating, "Listen how simple is affirmative action. Whites in the workplace at all levels should be no more than 12.2% of the economic active population. Africans should be no less than 73%, colours 11%, and Indians 3%. That's the chair of the Employment Equity. Oh, so simple. Not to be outdone, money added to his controversial pronouncements a nice and simple explanation of how the numerical formula works in his department. He said, Indians are overrepresented in the GCIS. Their target was 3%, but the reality was 15.5%, Manji said. He added, the black people constituted 76% of the population, but their representativity was 56%. They are therefore underrepresented. Manji said that the colours constituted 11% nationally, so the 10.9% of the GCIS was almost spot on. Whites nationally 12% but overrepresented at the GCIS. A chilling, clinical, numerical approach to affirmative action. Indians are in oversupply and they should become fewer. Disadvantagement of or redress are not factors. Not at all. No, it's a racial count. Everything must be an exact replica of the country's demographics. It is a finely balanced and never-ending social engineering program because demographics keep on changing. And where things don't add up, strong measures are justified. And I quoted Jimmy Manji again. He said, if whites thought Zimbabweans were militant, wait until they witness the militancies of South African workers. If the workplace did not become more equitable, according to his definition, and the black majority continued to be marginalized, Zimbabwe could look like a Sunday picnic in comparison. Harsh action if we don't reach that specific target. Mr. Manny, your target should not be Jimmy Manji. It should be the ideas he represents. While Manji's utterances are both unconstitutional and morally reprehensible, the idea he represents is even more so. Manji does not have an apartheid mind, but an apartheid idea. If you want to speak about fighting against people who, in Mr. Mandela's words, wish to replace one form of domination with another, you must not fight only against Manji, but against his idea, the tyranny of representativity. Mr. Manuel, you are correct. Manji's racist ideas have infiltrated the highest echelons of government. They have become government. You have declared, Mr. Manuel, yourself prepared to fight against these ideas of Manji. If you are prepared to take on not the person of Manji, but his ideas, you should also stand up against your fellow ministers' affirmative action plans. And you must stand up for Rudy van Heerden, Dirk Hermann, and Dirk Kotze, and thousands of other public servants. Today, it's also my privilege to announce that Solidarity is preparing to consolidate several cases against correctional services and launch the biggest affirmative action court case to date to test the constitutionality of the notion of absolute representativity. In total, we are now engaged in 21 lawsuits against government about the principle of representativity. Mr. Manuel, you and everyone who supports the notion that South Africa belongs to all of us should be fighting together with us in court. From the Labour Court to the Constitutional Court. The heart of the matter is that South Africa's affirmative action policy has disintegrated into a policy in which numbers are all that count. Everything possible is done to attain targets. Posts are left unfilled or are removed. More stringent regulations are implemented. Heavier fines are proposed. Posts are contracted out so that they do not count. The less of negative measures goes on. The positive character of affirmative action has been lost. Affirmative action itself has failed. We in South Africa have to be mature enough to admit that this affirmative action laws we are flocking is quite dead. Because some box won't whip the dead horse back to its feet. More regulations, more fines, more legislation won't get the horse galloping again. The jockeys will just become angrier and angrier at the poor dead thing. We have to shift our mindset because right now there are only affirmative losers. Affirmative action has lost its compass and become something other than it was intended to be. And this brings me to conclusion. The last end, Mr. Mandela. The compass can be found again in the origins of the concept of affirmative action. Yes, the source from which affirmative action developed. And allow me to quote Mr. Mandela at the ANC conference on affirmative action in Port Elizabeth in 1991. And by the way, this approach and Mr. Mandela's exact words have been incorporated in the explanatory memorandum of the Employment Equity Bill as the vision of the law. He said, the primary aims of affirmative action must be to redress the imbalances created by apartheid. We are not asking for handouts for anyone, nor are we saying that just as a white skin was a passport to privilege in the past, so a black skin should be the basis of privilege of the future, nor is it our aim to do away with qualifications. What we are against is not the upholding of standards as such, but the sustaining of barriers to the attainment of standards. The special measures that we envisage to overcome the legacy of the past discrimination are not intended to ensure the advancement of unqualified persons, but to see that those who have denied access to qualifications in the past can become qualified now. Do you hear anything of absolute representativity? Do you hear anything here about people being numbers? Do you hear anything about posts being left vacant for the sake of race and to the detriment of standards? I hear a positive, balanced approach. I hear something that is diametrically opposed to the Manji and unfortunately the current government's ideas. What are the main differences between Mandela and Manji's respective approaches? Manji emphasizes outputs, namely race targets. Mandela emphasizes inputs, namely training and development. Manji wants to transform jobs. Mandela wants to transform people. Manji put race before growth. Mandela believes in development as incentive for growth. Mandi believes in unbalanced affirmative action. Mandela seeks to redress imbalances without creating new imbalances. Manji believes in revenge and absolute representativity. Mandela believes in justice and equality. My call to South Africa is for a new Kodaiza on affirmative action. Affirmative action needs a new compass. Affirm affirmative action for a better South Africa for all who live in it, black and white. Thank you.